So most sellers that have not been making the payments will never tell you that they're not making the payment. How many of y'all know about that? Bradford knows. They're never going to tell you. Who they don't even tell their kids about it and their family. So you coming in like a stranger, why am I going to tell you that? So when I'm dealing with a situation where I think now you might not have any clue, okay, but a lot of times I'll just say, hey, this is just a requirement of mine. I say one of the things that we require to list the property is your most recent mortgage statement. It's just part of the package. And then I just
Okay.
go on, I say, I need your most recent mortgage statement. I also need this, and I'm just talking. And if they start well, why you need that? Oh, is there a problem? You know? And I may not say it that way, but then okay, we're gonna have a different conversation. Welcome to the Success with Listings podcast, where we help you get success in the real estate game the easy way. Now you can get off the roller coaster of feast and famine and out of the rat race of competing with every other agent in town. Hi, I'm Knolly Williams. I took over 1,000 listings during my first 10 years in the real estate game, and in this podcast, I show you how to have success with listings. Let's go. What's up, girl?
Good morning. Good morning. Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy. I don't see you.
Oh, okay. I don't like getting on camera, but I will
You
get
don't like
on
to be seen. You
camera.
don't like to be seen, but you want to sell, but you don't want to be seen.
Well, I pray for me.
I
Pray for
am. I'm praying for you every day, girl.
pray from your sister from another mister. Let me put my
That's
light
right. That's it. I got the same thing. I don't like to be seen, but I had to get over it
on.
because God wants you to be seen, Queen.
That's true. I
Yeah.
received that. I received that. Answer this question for me, please. Nolly, you've dealt with all kinds of sellers, and you probably didn't get every listing, right?
I
Tell
didn't.
me,
No, that's correct.
tell me about a seller that was not a good fit and how you picked up on this. And tell me if that seller told you everything that you needed to know. And if they didn't, how did you find out?
Well, with sellers, you got to be real careful because sellers initially are going to be on guard. So if you go in there like, because normally when I interact with somebody, it's energy. I'm trying to
Mhm.
feel their energy. Like this is how God wired us. We're electrical beings.
That's
We
true.
have a central nervous system, and it's electromagnetic. And so the way that we most communication between in fact, let me put it this way: the percentage of communication that's verbal is very low. I think it's like less than 10%. If
Mhm.
you look it up, maybe 13% on the high number. But all other communication that Homo sapiens have is nonverbal.
That's right.
Okay. So because of that, I'm picking up on cues from the seller, but I have to be very careful not to overread because I expect the seller not to trust me. I expect the seller, you know, to be defensive or on the defense. Now, what will break that up is all the pre-selling that you're doing, your pre-listing package, your book, okay, your pre-listing video. Now you walk in, they're giddy. I had one listing I went on. The guy was walking around the house with me, and he just smiling like just smiling like this. I'm like, man, what's wrong with this guy? I'm thinking to myself. And so I go to the next room, and he's smiling like that. And I'm seeing guns on the wall. I'm like, man, what's going on in here? I hope there ain't no basement around here. Well,
Right.
it just so happened. I was like, man, can I just stop for a minute? You seem to be excited about something. Let me in on it. He said, well, Nolly, I've been watching you. I've seen your videos. I mean, the dude was like excited. Like, so I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, yeah, that. Okay, yeah. So I built all that up. It's like they say, don't believe the hype, right? Right. But it's hype, but at the same time, it helps. It's hype that helps. Okay. Because what it does is it dissolves a lot of the things that you might run into when you go on a listing appointment that I'm not ever going to see. Like I talk to people that are like, man, the sellers are like this. I'm like, I don't meet sellers like that because see, I precondition them. You understand what I'm saying? They're
Mhm.
preconditioned for a good experience. They know now they're dealing with Uncle Nolly It's like, man, we got this, the cleanup man. That's what they used to call me back in the day. So, so again, there's things that you can do to mitigate that. But if you haven't done it and you just come in fresh, like they don't know who you are, maybe you were referred by a cousin or whatever. I always want to know the referral source. Okay. Why do I want to know the referral source?
You want to know the referral source so you can gauge your presentation.
That's it. 100%. So I say, hey, Carol, how'd you hear about me? That's the number one question that I have. And then when I always tell my assistant, like, how'd they hear about me? That's the only thing I want to know. Okay.
Mhm.
Everything else is cool. How many bedrooms, all that. And she says, oh, their cousin told. Okay. And I say, hey, Carol, tell me about your cousin. Are y'all close? Because now if you say, well, oh, cousin so-and-so, he kind of like this. Okay, well, now I know, But you say, oh, close. We were raised together. Anything he says, I do. Okay, well, good. Now, because write this down. A referral is a transfer of trust. Okay. A referral, when you referred by somebody, that's called a transfer of trust. That's the term that I give it. Um, and so I want to know the referral source. And that lets me know how do I have to come in. Now, if they just say, man, I saw your sign down the street, I've never really heard of you, but it looks like you got my neighbor's house and I just want to see what you're all about. Okay. So they're coming a little bit defensive from the beginning, which I expect them to. That's the reason why I use so many tools to break that up first. Now, if I didn't use my tools, I'm coming into a defensive situation. I already know. So I can't say that I can't be like, why are these people acting this way? I expect them to be that way, right? Do you know where we fall on the trustability index as realtors? In America, they have a thing called the trustability index, the least and most trusted professions in America. Do you know where realtors rank, Carol?
We're in the top 5, top 10.
We're the least trusted profession in America. Okay. It used to be used car salesman. We rank lower than them. All right.
Oh.
And every year it's a little different. So sometimes it's like a used car salesman and then realtor. And then
Mhm.
sometimes it changes,
Attorneys.
right? But
Are we ahead of attorneys?
we are less trusted than attorneys.
Ah,
Yeah, when you understand, just look it up, the trustability index. So we are in the least trust. Now I don't know why that is, because I'm gonna be honest with you. I run into a lot of agents, and most of my trust, I mean, they're cool, but I just think that because the bar of entry is so low in this profession, we attract a lot of types. And the income can be very high, but the bar of entry is very low, relatively speaking. You know, I can make doctor money. I mean, the street I was living on, one of my last houses, I mean, Dr. So-and-so lived here, surgeon over here. We got an attorney over there. I'm making doctor money. I make more than my doctors. I don't know a doctor that I work with that makes more money than I do. So but they went to school for 12 years and I didn't. You understand what I'm saying? I went to school for just to be honest with you, I went for I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks from my license. So you have to understand the only reason I'm pointing all that out, Carol, is because you can't go in the same way you go into a party, like reading people's energy. You expect them to not trust you. Like how sometimes you have a teacher that says, uh, everybody in my class has an A, you got to earn an F. You ever had a teacher like that? You got to earn an F,
I was
Come
that
in, you, but some teachers are like, you coming in with an F. You
Mhm.
got to earn an A. That's sellers. Sellers, you come in with an F. You got to earn an A. Okay. Now, if you have all your stuff together, like most agents don't, like 99% of them do not, you come in with a B minus, because I seen your pre-listing package, I saw your video, man, you sold two of my neighbors' houses, my cousin knows about you. Now you coming in with a B minus, but you still got to earn an A. So all that to say, Carol, that you have to expect that when you go in the listing game. This is the game we're in. You know what I'm saying? So now I don't even know if I'm answering your question. I just have a sense that there's some people on here right now that don't really understand the game they're in. You understand? And the game
Mhm.
board, the way we're set up here. So we come in already with a very deep deficit. Okay. Now, if you've built a reputation, none of this applies to you. Does that make sense? None of
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
saying right now applies to Bradford Page, because when he's in Savannah, Georgia, he's been doing it for 20 years. His name is synonymous with, you know, trust. But if you're just getting in the game like you are, Carol, that's not the case. Okay. And guess who's going to trust you the least? Your family. Yep. Why? Because they don't know Carol the realtor. That Carol's a realtor? What? I thought she was teaching. I thought she was such and such. She's a
Right,
realtor now? Does
right.
she know she don't, so they don't even trust that you know what you're doing, right? You understand what I'm saying now?
I feel
So
you.
yeah, you feel me. So the point that I'm making is that that is what you have to know going in. And so 99% of the listings that I go on, I get. Okay. But there's no way that I would get them if I came in like most agents I know. I wouldn't get them. Okay. So I already have to sort of precondition the whole scenario. I have to set myself up for success. You know, I have to have 5-star reviews on Google. I have to do all these things before I hit your door, because otherwise I don't want to come into hostility. And I know that's what's going to be greeted for me if I don't set it up correctly. You see what I'm saying? So now go on to the second part of your I I don't even know. I probably haven't even touched on your question, Carol, but you sparked something in me for that. So now you're talking about you got this seller that's not being truthful.
Yeah, I mean, you pre-screen them, you talk with them over the phone,
Yep.
such as I did recently.
Yeah.
You think you have all the cards on the table. You know about trust one, trust two. They need to get out. They want the property off of their hands, but they haven't told you their NOD.
Well, no, most of them aren't. Most of them aren't. See, my NODs, what I would do, that's notice of default. So they're in arrears. They haven't been making their payments. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. Hmm.
Okay. So most sellers that have not been making their payments will never tell you that they're not making the payment. How many of y'all know about that? Bradford knows. They're never going to tell you. Who they don't even tell their kids about it and their family. So you coming in like a stranger, why am I going to tell you that? So when I'm dealing with a situation where I think now you might not have any clue, okay, but a lot of times I'll just say, hey, this is just a requirement of mine. I say one of the things that we require to list the property is your most recent mortgage statement. It's just part of the package. And then I just
Okay.
go on, I say, I need your most recent mortgage statement. I also need this, and I'm just talking. And if they start well, why you need that? Oh, is there a problem? You know? And I may not say it that way, but then okay, we're gonna have a different conversation. And what I used to tell people when I was dealing with NODs, I say, hey, Carol, most of my clients, because they would never tell, if I was to say, hey, Carol, are you behind on your payments? They get offended. Like, why would you ask me that? What do you
Hmm.
mean? So here's how I would say it. I say, now, Carol, most of the people that I work with, and I'm talking about, I knew that they were behind. Okay. I say, most of them are like 8 to 9 months behind on their payment. What's your situation? That's exactly how I would say it. And they
Okay.
say, 8 to 9. No, I'm only behind 3 months. Now
Mm.
they feel like they're ahead, like, right. So like, with 8, 9 months, man, I'm only behind 3 months. Okay, no problem. Now, if I would have said, are you behind, they would have acted different that way. So the way that you phrase the question, like I just make it normal. Like, hey, the majority of people that I help in your
Hmm.
situation are like this. And sometimes I exaggerate it. Like I say, you know, hey, don't hate on me now. We're dealing with psychology, okay? And a lot of times it's hard to get the truth from people. That comes over time. If they don't trust you, they're not going to tell you the truth. And trust comes over time sometimes. So yeah, and if they're in default, it doesn't matter. But you should expect that they won't tell you that. That's expected.
Wow. I
Hmm.
noticed something was up when I told my seller, I said, make sure you keep up on your payments. We don't want to have you at closing with any surprises. Make sure you're keeping up with your payment. You don't want to miss a payment just because we're about to list your property.
Mm,
He got radio silent on me. I'm like, uh-oh, I touched
yeah.
on something.
Yep.
was talkative
Yeah.
until I started mentioning mortgage payment.
Yeah. So another way to just say that, and you didn't know. I mean, there's no way you could have known that. But you could say something like, I know you're what's his reason for selling, by the way?
He's in debt up to his neck. He's
He's got to
he's just
liquidate.
bombarded with a
Yeah.
lot of bills. He's
So the
over
way
his.
so the way to
Mhm.
handle that would be, Jerome, look, I know you got a lot of bills right now. You're selling your house to go ahead and, make sense of it all and to basically get back in black. I mean, hey, everybody wants to do that. That's a smart decision. Are you able to keep up with your mortgage payments, or is that another situation that we might have to take a look at? Have you been able to keep up with those? If not, don't worry about it. It's no problem. See, you can't, because if he's not keeping up with his mortgage payments, it doesn't matter. That's not really an issue, as long as he has equity. Now you don't want them to foreclose, and they're and my I don't let properties foreclose. I've got a guy right now I'm working with. He hasn't made a payment in a year and a half. They are not going to foreclose on the house. I guarantee you that. And they tried to foreclose on him last month, and I wrote a letter. I can send you a copy of it, exactly what I said, and they did not foreclose. They knew not to foreclose after they read that letter. Okay, because what I did was I made them forward my letter to the investors of the note, and they did not. Anyway. So there's nothing wrong with it being. I don't require that my sellers make their payments, but I need to know if they're not making them, so I can prevent so we can halt any foreclosure activity. You know,
Okay.
if they have equity, it doesn't matter.
Depending on the lender, they may try to foreclose. Bank of America is trigger happy about pursuing foreclosures. If you
What
miss,
state are you in?
I live in Maryland.
In Maryland? Yeah, they have different laws up there.
They
Um,
do.
how many months behind is
I've lost contact with him. He's gone radio silent. He's not signing any paperwork. He's just ghosting us. So, I mean, every time he says he's going to do something, he doesn't do it. We
it,
just stepped back a little bit from him.
what so here's what you want to do. And I've got an agent there that is a master. Her name is Teal Kleiss. She's a master at pre-foreclosure. She is, I'm not even gonna say the word goddess because that we don't use that word, but I'm just saying if there was such a thing, she's the gal for that. So she has done so many foreclosures and pre-foreclosures make your head spin. So it doesn't really and by the way, she recruited the broker from Maryland into her group, and she's part of our organization. So at the end of the day, uh uh-oh, where are we at? Oh, we gained some ground. Look at that. Okay, we'll look at that in a minute. Trustability index. We're better than lawyers? Are we better than lawyers now?
I think politicians are moving into first place, Nolly.
Where's politics? Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. Where's politics? Anyway, I'll look at that later. Sorry, Carol. So yeah, Carol, you can help this guy, but you have to reach him from a different angle. NODs have to be talked to differently. They really do. And so the conversation is like, because they're basically Bradford, you can join the conversation because you do a lot of pre-foreclosure. But the NODs are basically how should I say it? They're embarrassed. And our job is to make them feel comfortable with being in default, like non-judgmental, if you will. And that was not done up front. Somehow he felt shamed. And that's him. That's his own headspace. But still, I'm telling you, this is all psychology, okay? And somehow he felt a little bit like, okay, I'm, I didn't do what teacher said, so now I got to go hide. All right,
Okay.
Bradford, what's your thoughts? I want to get Bradford in here because Bradford's done a ton of these, just like I have. Go ahead, Bradford.
Yeah, I've done a few, and they are very emotional, and people don't want to share. They're embarrassed. I sat in a kitchen where we had a signed listing agreement. And we were ready to go, and I knew they were behind, and we built that relationship. But the husband was still embarrassed to tell his wife how far behind. So I put a sign in the yard, listed the house, and got a call from the bank saying, need to remove your sign. It's getting foreclosed on tomorrow. We couldn't save it. So
Yeah.
it is definitely a psychological game of building that trust. And I guess the phrase that always helps me a lot is, good people, sometimes bad things happen to good people, and we're not judgmental. Uh,
Yeah.
Everybody, Nolly, you've been there. You've gone
Yeah.
through the process, so you can certainly relate. And
I
years
can
ago, way
relate.
before I was in real estate, I did the same thing.
Yep.
So we can relate to those people, and I think that helps open up if they understand that, you're there to help them in a bad situation to get them the least worst outcome. And but it's hard to
Yeah.
gain their trust. I mean, we get
Yeah.
people hating on us big time. We do some cold calling, and man, getting through that barrier is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. 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 Anybody else have anything to add? Because I see a few I know there might be some other questions, but yeah, that's a delicate one. You didn't do anything wrong.
Something, I had something to just an observation because this is something that I want to learn more about. And on Lab Coat Agents,
Mhm.
have you heard of that group on
Of course.
Facebook?
Of course. Yeah. That's my boys. Yeah.
Yeah, so I always like to keep up with that. But on a recent post, somebody was saying that they kind of got the rug pulled out from under them when were speaking to a seller, knew they were close to losing the home, but it wasn't supposed to be quite there yet. Then one agent posted that there was going to be an auction like the next morning. She was able to find a bankruptcy attorney
Yep.
that was able to file bankruptcy for that seller, for that owner of that home,
Yeah.
which of course protected the house. And then they were able to move forward with, kind of taking their time.
Right. Well, there's three ways. So a foreclosure actually survives bankruptcy. However, the bankruptcy puts an automatic stay on all creditors. So that's like a automatically, if that seller files bankruptcy, even the day before, and I've had some do the day of foreclosure, it automatically ceases all foreclosure activity and auctions and all that. And so then we have time to go ahead and work the property, get it sold, especially if they have equity. Okay. Another thing that you could do is a TRO. You have to have an attorney that knows what they're doing, but they put a temporary restraining order on the bank. And I have a really good guy named Patton, attorney Ashley Patton. He would do TROs for me, which are pretty, pretty. It's a socket to me, but and you can do a TRO on anybody, but it has to go through the judicial process, and it'll eventually be thrown out. But in the meantime, it basically puts a stay on the foreclosure. That's a temporary restraining order. The third strategy that I use very effectively is just a letter. And the letter because when you understand with how mortgage works, you've got mortgages, you've got the mortgage company, and which is usually a servicer of the note. So if you're working with like Wells Fargo or Bank of America, they service the note, but they don't own the note in most cases. Most notes are owned by investors. And the number one thing that an investor does not want to do is take the property back. Why? Because when a property is on a bank's books, it shows up as an asset. Okay. As soon as it becomes a foreclosure, what does it show up as? A liability. Okay. So the more foreclosures you have, the more liabilities you have on your books, which is bad for investors and it's bad for your stock portfolio, your stock rating. So what I do is I write a carefully crafted letter that forces them to send the letter to the investors, and the investors are always like, "What are you doing? Do not foreclose on that." That's the least aggressive strategy. Probably the more aggressive ones are the bankruptcy and the TRO. But that's only if you have a foreclosure that's about to happen tomorrow or the next day. In my case, I had one that was foreclosing on Tuesday, and I sent them the letter on Friday, and they stopped it. I knew they would, because that kind of a letter, essentially what happens is if they later on when that file is audited, if that file is ever audited, and the investors find out that there was a communique that could have prevented them from foreclosure because we have an offer on the property, we have a contract on the property, and they find out that that was, in file, and they were not told about it, then heads will roll. So they automatically have to stop it when they get a certain kind of communique. So if you know what you're doing, or you partner with someone that knows what they're doing, you can stop like 90+% of these from happening, even if they're happening the next day.
When you say send a letter, I'm assuming you meant you send an email, because a letter
An
would
email.
never reach. Yeah.
An email. Yep. And you, at that point, we already had a loss mitigator assigned. So yeah, I call it a letter, but it's an email. Even text, I call it. It's a communique, basically, but it's just the medium that you use. Yeah, you don't send letters. Yeah. Not snail mail. Yep. Now I see other people now, Carol, look, you didn't do anything wrong. It is kind of a lengthy question, but what I will say that you could do better is you've got to, you don't know what you don't know, and you're gaining that knowledge. What you could do better is your expectations probably should change a little. Okay. Just have a dimmer expectation than you currently have, because that trust that we're asking people to trust them with their most valuable asset, that has to be earned. You can't walk in with that. And one of the ways that I'm helping you guys mitigate this is with our whole series that we're doing, the tools of the listing trade. Many of you are walking in with no tools, and you're getting banged up. You're not being treated the way you should, and you're not getting the full benefit that you should have. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Success with Listings podcast. If you are serious about taking your real estate career to the highest heights, making more money and helping more clients while working less hours and spending more time with your family, be sure to get your copy of my free book, Triple My Listing, absolutely free at successwithlistings.com. Now, you want to be sure that you subscribe to the podcast and check out successwithlistings.com to get your copy of my free book. Hey, I'll see you on the next one.